Good morning and welcome to the next Vintage Legends. My name is Graham. I'm from the Vintage Guitar Group and you can find us on Facebook. So it's facebook.com/groups/the Vintage Place. You can check us out on Instagram at 95 Vintage Legends and we would love you forever, and you know that if you were to hit subscribe below. So today I'm here for the next Vintage Legends with the one and only Mr. Thomas Blug. So good morning, Thomas. How are you?
Good, I'm fine, yeah.
And thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on your Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of people will know Thomas from having his signature models with Vintage and also as being the designer of the BluGuitar AMP1. So an absolute pleasure to have you here today. If you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit firstly about your music?
Sure. I have a few different things that I'm doing musically. One thing is my Thomas Blug band, which is like top musicians, which is Thijs van Leer from the Netherlands, the mastermind of Focus. Maybe some people know the song Hocus Pocus by Focus. He's the master on the organ, on the flute, and the yodeling. A very very talented man that has been awarded by the Dutch Queen for the achievements in music in his life. And then the rest of the band are kind of my German studio musician friends, Raoul Walton, Wolf Simon, and sometimes Bernie Wittmann. But this is kind of my instrumental side. On the other hand, since I founded BluGuitar, I spent more time with a power rock trio, like a 3-piece. It's called Rock Anarchy. The reason for that is it is so much fun, and it is, I would say, a lot less work, but still artistically a nice thing. So what we are doing is basically we play rock classics from Deep Purple, The Police, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, you name it, all the classic stuff that we all know. But we play those things like jazz standards, not sounding like jazz. We sound like a rock band. We are a power trio. But we mix whatever comes to mind. So when I play, for instance, Black Knight, I started with Oxygen by Jean-Michel Jarre because I grew up in the 80s with synthesizers as well, but I play it now on the guitar. And then while being there, I throw in whatever comes to mind, like ZZ Top, and wring that neck, change keys. The other day somebody watched a concert. We were playing on the countryside where sometimes we have proper concerts booked where people pay like 20 euros. And, so they come to the concerts. And this was kind of a street fest. And some of the guys came after the concert and said, "Man, this was great. At the beginning, I didn't know what it was. I thought your sound check was like 20 minutes. But then I found out it was art." The guy was standing there. It was art. And exactly this is what it is. It's fun and it's art, but it's like we are playing with all the elements that these top musicians in my band have in their heads, and I can just trigger stuff if I start like bop ba-da-da, ba-da-da, Stevie Wonder. I can put this directly into ba-da-da-da-da-da from the Rolling Stones. What is it, Miss You? And I can go seamlessly into ba-da-da-da, George Michael, Careless Whisper, and so I create mashups, on the fly. So this is stuff that I do. Besides that, I've done, wrote music for television. I've been recording in the past for a lot of German artists, even some international artists, and yeah. So as a session guy, but I quit that business because my life is too short. Now I have BluGuitar, and I focus on BluGuitar, having fun with music. I still gig. I have a tour coming up with a great friend of mine, who used to play in Wishbone Ash for 10 years, Ben Granfeld, and we're just about to do a record together. And we are both like Stratocaster players, so we are the twin Strats or whatever you. So that's all.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Still very active. If you were taking requests, a mashup I would absolutely love to hear would be All Along the Watchtower with California Dreaming, because there's some pretty similar chords in there.
Yeah. I mean, the Watchtower is another song that I play in my other project, which is called Blug Plays Hendrix, because I started the project with a single concert and recording that on the DVD in 2010, I believe it was, and then the DVD got out, and then I had that vintage Summer of Love guitar done for that concert. And guess what happened? At that time, that Summer of Love didn't exist as a vintage product to be bought, because vintage wasn't sure if this will be a product. But I had so many people asking for the guitar that I even bought 80 pieces myself and had somebody hand paint them and sold them here in Germany. And then Vintage was convinced, let's make it a signature model.
That's pretty awesome. So it's almost like the first Pro Shop as well, turns into signature model.
Yeah. It just came by nature, because I have my white distressed vintage model. And I thought, when I play the Hendrix, Blug Plays Hendrix thing for the DVD, I should have a guitar that looks slightly different too, And then, of course, I was inspired by that Jimi Hendrix reverse headstock thing, do something in that direction, but still a guitar that I could play easily, coming from. I don't play upside down.
That's that little kind of left-handed, right-handed thing. That's fair. Well, how did you, in the first instance, come across vintage?
Well, it's through Trevor Wilkinson. I mean, I'm let's call myself a trade show veteran. I've been on trade shows in the last century, in the 90s, 80s. I think I was there as a fan in the 80s, asking for signatures from, Simon Phillips, the drummer, back then. And then a few years later, I became a demonstrator. And then, of course, these trade show people, you come across interesting people. And Trev was one of them. And he was cheating me once with my 61 Strat. So, I had prepared my demo, and then, I went to the toilet quickly before I was doing my 20 minutes little demo show. And when I came back, my this original 61 Strat, Fender Strat, was sitting without me on stage while I was on the toilet really quick. But when I came back, it was disappeared, and a white distressed guitar with no logo and a plaster on the headstock was in my guitar stand, and people were already waiting for my demo. So I took that guitar and I started my demo, and kind of in the middle of the demo, he came around the corner. I didn't see him before, so he was kind of hiding, showed me the 61 Strat is still there, smiling at me. And then after my demo was over, we started to talk, and they said that, I'm working on something new. And then he kind of forced me to try it out without anything. And I thought, what's going on here? And then
it's a nervous moment.
Oh yeah. This was Anyway, but the thing is, when I was having a chat with him, I told him, if I ever do something like that, I want whatever, my dummy coil, I want my treble bleed, I need tuning stability, I need all the features. You know, I spent years to get my Strat, my original Fender Strat, in a way that it's actually usable for me on stage.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a standard Stratocaster, whatever make or brand, might be okay, but I have to have my thing to do my thing.
Yeah.
And I modded my Strat to have the original tones, but have features that I depend on being on stages with whatever electromagnetic problems. Here in Germany, we have a lot of venues that are formerly train stations, you know, because it's kind of outside town, and when the trains come, there's still kind of electromagnetic noise coming.
Yeah.
So a dummy coil was essential for me always.
Yeah. So with vintage, then what is it that makes you play those guitars and have your signature and your name on those guitars?
Well, the thing is, they do it the way I want to have it. I mean, you know, I was offered other guitars previously in my life from whatever other companies. They even would give me money to play it, and I refused it, which made me a big fan of other companies. But just because I told them, I don't play anything stock. I only play what I want. And because, you know, I was refusing instruments like with the words, this will not change anything in my life. If you give me your guitar, I'm not happy with your guitar, even if though it's a great guitar. No, I need to have my recipe to a certain level, that it's so good that I forget while playing that vintage guitar. I'm happy, and I can totally forget and focus on the music.
Yeah.
So for me, it was important that I didn't have to compromise in any way. But of course, I know my 61 Strat is still a guitar that has been played for decades, and thereby is probably this gives an instrument a quality of its own. But the vintage is at the level that I pick it up, and it's like, for me, forget it. It's the last 5% are not important anymore, because everything else is right.
Yeah.
And there's so when I play my Blug plays Hendrix shows, I play like at least half of the concert on the vintage and the rest on my 61. And when I play other concerts, I play my 61 and I have the vintage as a backup. And I remember I forgot my 61 original Strat once at my sister's place and went to the concert with just my vintage. So I played with just my vintage. And when I travel internationally, my original Fender Strat stays at home, and I play the vintage exclusively. You know, last time in the UK, I was just playing the vintage, not only for political reasons, no, for practical reasons. And the same when I go to other places, because it's easier to get another good vintage than to get my Strat again. Yeah. It's not possible.
And also, on that note, an absolute fortune less if you need to replace your vintage.
That's true. Yeah, and that's by the way, that's again very important part of the whole concept, because I don't want to support the thought of being on stage like Joe Bonamassa with 150,000 or whatever value guitars, because you can. I don't have a security guy that takes care of my guitars. I'm just, you know, I always use my guitars as tools.
Yeah.
And just when I bought my original guitar, it was not expensive. It was 2,300 Deutschmarks, which is like whatever, let's say 2,000 pounds now or something like that. Not like 15 or 20 or, you know, like this crazy sum of money. Yeah. but I want to go and have no worries on stage, and that's so important, and that's part of the vintage philosophy.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's again, like you say, it's a tool for the job, and guitars for the working musician, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I know, obviously, you've got the Summer Love Model V6, you've got the Distressed White V6. We do obviously see on the videos you put out, the BluGuitar videos, that you also have a number of different guitars, including some single cuts. I'm always curious if you were to have the option of either a kind of pro shop model, or if you were to have maybe another signature model, what would you want?
Well, over the last years, I got pretty excited about Les Pauls. In my early days, I had access to like Les Pauls that inspired me. But even back in the days when my Strat was like 2,300, me being 17, and the Les Paul was like 10,000, and that was totally out of reach.
Yeah.
And so since I'm in the industry and I know all the vintage collectors and people and blah, blah, blah. So over the last like 10 years, I found finally Les Pauls of that quality again. Problem is, they don't belong to me. They belong to the collectors, and they are so expensive, and they don't even sell those guitars.
Yeah.
But what I have done is, I bought myself a 68 Les Paul and converted that into what I found with the collectors, like a 57 gold top. And every year I have, slight changes. Like, okay, I have a guy that makes me some pickups. I have, things like that. But I'm getting into this Paul world, finding out my recipe, like I was doing it with my Stratocaster stuff.
Yeah.
We're like doing the mods, finding out what is important to me to get the recipe, my personal recipe in a Les Paul, for instance, to a certain level that the instrument talks to me.
Yeah.
And now I emotionally can play a Les Paul, not just like I was doing in the past when I was in the studio. Somebody said, okay, we need, power chords here. Then of course I would do it with Les Paul instead of my Stratocaster. And I always had a Les Paul, but it was not like on the level I forget myself and create music.
Yeah.
It was more like a tool. And now with these Les Paul that came kind of into my life over the last 10 years, I have a growing feeling of that instrument, and it's now in my modded Gibson. I came to the level where I said, okay, this is what it is, and I actually played it on stage, which you see very rarely picture with me on the Les Paul on stage. And I even dared to play a full gig on a Les Paul without having a backup Strat in my case,
Unheard of.
Yeah. So I'm getting into this thing, and that could be a next project. I'm still tweaking little things here and there, but I'm now on the level. I'm in the zone. It's like I know what this is what I want, and that's probably something.
I'm intrigued. So do you reckon a gold top? Definitely.
Yeah. For me, it's a gold top. Distressed gold top. That's the cosmetics.
Yeah.
And the tone is kind of I would call it a telly on steroids.
Yeah. So do you reckon, would you have then like a coil split or something, maybe a push pull pot coil split or something, maybe?
That's an extra aspect. But what's even more important for me is that the tone is the tone needs to be twangy. If a Les Paul is just that fat, big monster, it's not my cup of tea. But if the Les Paul has that telly quality, but with the mahogany and the humbucker pickups, like a telly on steroids.
Yeah.
That's my way to express it in a way. And then I get the noise out of it that I want. It's like it has to bark, wah, wah, wah. And it needs to have that O and not that flat mid-range
Squawk.
fatness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not my thing.
Interestingly, what I do have, I try not to destroy the place here, is this V100, which has been modded for Crean Wilkinson pickups
Yeah,
and push pull pot to
yeah.
put it down to coil tap. I find this to have a really nice, open, clear kind of quality rather than, like you say, that kind of squawky, flat, boxy sound.
Yep, I totally get it. Well, the first thing is if you take away the covers, the guitar, the high end opens up.
Yeah.
But I want that with the covers because I want that authentic 57, 59 tone. The thing about 57 and 59 is I know a lot of 59s that don't interest me because they are too fat. I finally found one 59 which is so exceptionally good that every time I pick up that guitar, it's instant music.
Yeah.
And even the owner wrote me an email that he had to cry. It was this intense, you know? It's like, fuck. But it happens to me every time I pick up the guitar. It's like, wow. So, but this is one of the exceptional 59s.
Yeah.
I find that quality more often in 57s, which is the first year of the humbucker. And that's, so, and from the cosmetic side, I'm more like the gold top 57 look. That this, for me, that was always like, yeah. So anyway, this is on my in my head or on my wish list or whatever could be done next.
So Paul, if you're listening,
yeah, he's definitely listening.
That's awesome. And in terms of what is coming up next, I know you are an incredibly busy man, which is also why I'm very grateful to get your time today. But what is coming up for music? What's coming up for the AmpX and BluGuitar?
Yeah. Well, on BluGuitar, of course, MX is the big project, and it's kind of the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. A simplified explanation of that thing is I have all the amps that I ever seen in all the pedals, being it analog or digital, in one device, which is only 40 centimeters wide. And it's like, I can even put that in my gig bag. It's a full guitar pedal board with your dream pedals and amps in a format that you can travel in your gig bag. So this is like, if I draw all the lines from my early days to whatever I learned in my life, I put that in this product. Problem is, it's so complex. I have to postpone the release like every half a year for another half a year. But my prototype is working. And so I know I will get there eventually.
Yes.
So
it's another thing that's going to be on my shopping list because I have, of course, one of these, which is this is the original silver edition one. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm half considering selling an Engel Thunder in order to get an Iridium edition, so that might be next on my shopping list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm touring with the Amp1 since day one. I still have a huge collection of other amplifiers, mainly boutique stuff and vintage amps, because I don't need ordinary amps. I'm living in this kind of snobby high-end world with very good guitars and even better amplifiers, with a collection of old tubes and speakers and whatnot. But that's my life. I have all the excuses to do that because
let's face it though, I know obviously we're talking a lot about vintage and such as well, but like the fact that this is this size and can fit into any bag. The biggest fear I have with this is never ever in reliability or tone, because it's fucking amazing. The biggest problem I ever have is I forget it and leave it somewhere.
It's so small. It's the same problem here under the seat of my car. And but for me, what is the biggest thing about M1 or the BluGuitar thing is now I'm connected to killer players.
Yeah.
I mean, Adrian Vandenberg has an Iridium. You talked about that, and the silver one. You know, one of those. And you know, Jennifer Batten was my first customer. She and I even could connect with her to invite her on my Rock Anarchy tour.
Yeah.
You know, so it all kind of comes together. And now even Ben Grenfeld, I'm doing the next album with. He used to be Mr. Engel of Scandinavia for 10 years or something. And he plays M1 now, not only because of me, but he had 5 or 4 failures on the tour. And then this was even before we started making music together, really. I was probably guesting on one of his albums 10 years ago, but then on a tour, his tube amp broke down the 4th time. And then he said, "Hey, Thomas, I need, that sucks. Can you send me one of those amp1s? Because, you know, my colleagues in the band told me that it sounds good because they played with me as well." And then I said, "Okay, no problem. I'll send you by post, give you a quick instruction, and the tour goes on."
Yeah.
And he ever sent, so all this kind of things come together, and it's great to have that kind of family. And this includes also the vintage connection. For me, you know, this industry in general is kind of a small industry, and there are cool people. And I like the fact to work with cool people, to spend my time with cool people, making cool projects, you know, and one of the cool projects is my vintage signature guitars, because in the end, I made people happy. They could buy a guitar like mine, affordable. And, you know, there's this, what is it? Is the, Tora was, is she, well, I met her somewhere in Scandinavia.
Norwegian, yeah.
Norwegian.
Yeah.
I was, which country, you know, Sweden,
Yeah, sort of.
Finland, Norwegian. Okay. She grew up with my signature model. You know, she created her style.
She's an incredible guitar player as well, you know.
Yeah. And so that, you know, I met her in Norway once and stuff like that. So this, you know, the whole thing comes together, and that's joy, that's happiness, that's, you know, I like that.
Yeah, it's a big thing again about why I think these interviews are so worthwhile, because, as you say, there's a lot of good people in the industry, there's a lot of good people, you know, and they're playing, and it's just showing where everyone comes from, and, you know, seeing these things, you know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And do you think, music-wise, then, much lined up for?
Well, I'm so busy with my company now, but I have to finish the album with Ben Grenfeld, with the 2 Strat guys. And actually next week, we play another, almost 2-week tour, and we have booked 3 days in the studio. And, like, I better get 2 more song ideas done this week. They're already here, but I have to record some stuff.
No pressure.
So the band knows what to do, but it's, so there's stuff on that end as well. Yeah. But we will see the album only like in 2023, when things are slow. I mean, he's in Finland. He just sent me some guitar tracks that he recorded in his studio. But next we will meet in person and then kind of arrange the songs together. Okay. Sometimes we leave the guide tracks because they have all it takes, and sometimes, especially, I'm not very happy. Let's put it another way. I'm more happy to leave my guide tracks. It's like I like the roughness more than the perfection.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, Ben seems to work out stuff a bit more at home, which is great. I mean, he plays great in the studio as well, but it's like, for me, I'm so busy. I have no feeling at home because my BluGuitar mind. But when I'm in the studio, I'm in the zone. I do it, and it's like, this is what you get on my album, and it's good. It will. And if there's a a weird note. It's part of being somebody like Jeff Beck plays weird notes too, you know.
I'm with you there. And do you know, it sounds, I think, sometimes things can be far too polished and just sounds sterile, and not naming names, but some maybe 60s and 70s rock bands that have some stuff that come out now, and you're like, it's just, there's not the same life to the recording sometimes if it's too polished, you know.
I totally agree. And that's why my last recordings that I brought out are live recordings. Blug Plays Hendrix, I have done 2 live DVDs of different shows because every show is different. My Rock Anarchy is a live recording. And even my Thomas Blut Band, I did a live recording. The studio albums are great. It's a different atmosphere.
Yeah.
But when I listen to my live performances or my live recordings, I like those more because, as you said, it's that wave that you create. And in the studio, it's like, okay, somebody gets you out of that momentum. You know, when I go on stage, after the first 4 bars, I forget about to think because I make music.
Yeah.
And this lasts until the end of the concert. In the studio, it's like you play a little bit and somebody stops the recording and has a better idea. And and my feeling is gone. And the feeling is the music. You know, it's not the technology. I'm not whatever technique I play. Some people think I have some guitar technique as well, but that's actually not my thing. That's a thing from the past when I was 17 and tried to steal Ingrid Malmsteen. But I promise I never practice anything after being 20. It's all the experience and learning to connect. That's my quality, I believe.
I'm with you there. And one last thing, if you don't mind, where can we check your stuff out online?
Well, there's tons of things I'm doing. Well, there's my website, which is being updated in a month. So if you go there now, which is www.thomasblug.com. Yeah. And then there is another website of my Rock Anarchy, www.rockanarchy, but in the German writing. But I think the internet does both. Anarchy, in the Germany, we have IE, the UK or the English word would be a Y.com, and BlugPlaysHendrix.com. So, and then there is, of course, my, I'm wearing this, my Academy of Tone shirt, which is on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel that, I do a weekly live stream on Wednesdays, which is 8 p.m. Central European time, which would be 7
here, yeah.
7 in the UK. Yeah. And I always
time for breakfast if you're in the US.
Yeah. And so every week I put out a new live stream, and you can ask me questions, and we have a song at the beginning, maybe a song at the outro. I play in between, so there's a lot of things going on. But, yeah, and then there's the typical social media things as well. But yeah, I'm all over the place.
I'll make sure there's a note of all that in this anyway. That's awesome. Well, allow me to say thank you so much today for your time this morning. Like I said, I know you're an incredibly busy man, so I really do appreciate it. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good weekend, Thomas.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Yeah. Cheers.